Hello, Mishpacha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother. Welcome back to my channel, and it's Friday, so that means it's time for another Friday Reads video, and this week I finished 3 books. I'm currently reading 3 books, so let's go. So the first book I finished was this lovely poetry collection by Jericho called The Tradition that was so kindly sent to me by my former dissertation director, and I noted this in the video where I unwrapped this, or unboxed it, whatever we're calling that, but this is in fact a signed copy of this book, so that was very exciting. So I really loved this collection. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I thought it was a this is a collection that packs a punch. It's not necessarily an enjoyable read, but definitely I think, again, it packs a punch, and I feel like it left an emotional impact and did what it was aiming to do in that regard. So I wanted to read 2 poems from here that I particularly liked to give you a sense of whether or not you might like this volume if you have not yet read it. This is called A Young Man. We stand together on our block, me and my son, neighbors saying our face is the same, but I know he's better than me. When other children move toward my daughter, he lurches like a brother meant to put them down. He is a bodyguard on the playground. He won't turn apart from her, empties any enemy, leaves them flimsy, me confounded. I never fought for so much. I calmed my daughter when I could cradle my daughter. My son swaggers about her. He won't have to heal a girl he won't let free. They are so small, and I still am a young man. In him lives my black anger made red. They play. He is not yet incarcerated. So it's like this sort of sweet poem about a brother being protective of his sister, and then at the end, boom, hits you with this kid probably going to be incarcerated at some point in the future. Because 1 in 3 African-American men are incarcerated in their lifetime. Second poem I wanted to read you is called Token. Burg, borough, ville, and wood. I hate those tiny towns, their obligations. If I needed anyone to look at me, I'd dye my hair purple and live in Bemidji. Look at me. I want to dye my hair purple and never notice you notice. I want this scandal in my bedroom, but not in the mouths of convenience store customers off of the nearest highway. Let me be another invisible, used and forgotten and left to whatever narrow miseries I make for myself without anybody asking what's wrong. Concern for my soul offends me, so I live in the city, the very shape of it winding like the mazes of the adult video outlets I roamed in my 20s. Pay a token to walk through tunnels of men, quick and colorless, there where we each knew what we were, there where I wasn't the only one. So yeah, again, I really like this collection overall. It's not necessarily an enjoyable read, but the poems are very powerful and resonant, and they are not all the same in form, and in fact, Jericho developed his own form that he employs in several poems in this volume called The Duplex, which is sort of a combination of a sonnet and a ghazal, that I thought was quite interesting. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this if you like poetry, and if you are interested in contemporary African-American literature. 4 stars. Again, thank you to my former dissertation director for sending me this. So that was the first book I finished. The second book I finished was an audiobook that I had been listening to. So this was Agatha Christie's The Moving Finger, which is the 3rd book in the Miss Marple series. I read this as part of the Readathon that's being hosted by Kevi at Say Kevi and Berna of Berna's Bookish Adventures, and I think Naomi of Naomi's Bookshelf is the other host of this. It's called the Christie's Missing Readathon. So I'll link all their channels in the announcement video for that down below. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars because it barely has Miss Marple in it. And if you're gonna pretend like this book is part of the Miss Marple series, I'm gonna need her to be in it. Like, I just feel like there's, like, how can you in good faith call a book part of the Miss Marple series when she's only in maybe 15% of the book, if I'm being generous, you know? I just feel like if you call a book a part of a series that features a character, the character should at least be in half or more of the book. I mean, what do y'all think? Do you think that it's misleading to call this book part of the Miss Marple series when she's barely in it? Please sound off in the comments below. So now that I've gotten the rant portion of this off of my chest, I'll get into what the book was actually about. Not Miss Marple, but... So this book starts off with two siblings named Jerry and Joanna Burton, and they have recently relocated to this small English village called Limstock because Jerry is trying to recover from an injury, and his doctor prescribes him, you know, some sort of quiet downtime in the country where he can enjoy the fresh air and, you know, get some sort of good rest time in. But then, of course, you know, that doesn't happen because there's a murder and stuff, right? So it actually starts off with all of these poison pen letters that get sent to various people who live in the village of Limstock, including both Jerry and Joanna, and then eventually the poison pen letters end up leading to two murders, and Jerry kind of gets involved in helping to solve the crime, although for the record Miss Marple does actually swoop in and solve the crime at the end. So that was at least good. I'm like, okay, this is a Miss Marple book, where's my crime solving old lady here? So anyway, so the book is narrated from Jerry's perspective, and he was fine. Like, he's like a dude, you know, like he's one of those. And this book was written in the 40s, so he's like you know, like a patronizing dude who's like, oh, you know, women are too emotional about X, Y, and Z. Now, I will say he doesn't necessarily feel that way about his sister, which, I mean, I guess good for him, you know, but there were several things that he said that I just kind of like rolled my eyes at, so not necessarily my favorite narrator ever, although again, he was fine. So in terms of the actual story and the mystery part, I was intrigued by it, and I was surprised by how it ended up turning out. So that part I give 3.5 stars. But again, the fact that this is allegedly a Miss Marple book, and Miss Marple's only in one scene around the 75% mark, and then again in like the literal last 10% of the book, you know, that's more like 2 stars. So anyway, I think I very kindly averaged that out to 3 stars. So if you read this book, just be aware, Miss Marple is barely in it. So if you go into this book thinking you're going to get some good, you know, Miss Marple sleuthing and crime-solving old lady bits, well, you're wrong. You're not going to get that. I mean, you will get that, but it's not going to be until the end of the book. So 3 stars. All right, moving on. And then the last book that I read this week was an ebook called Blonde Indian and Alaska Native Memoir by Ernestine Hayes. I read this as part of the Reading Women Challenge for 2021 to fulfill the prompt of reading a memoir by an Indigenous writer. So Ernestine Hayes is of Tlingi descent, which is a native tribe, an indigenous tribe of Alaska, as implied by the title. And yeah, this book was like the least memoir-y memoir that I've ever read. It was very all over the place. There was some very lovely nature writing. There was a whole sort of side story about this character named Tom, and until the middle of the book, when there are a bunch of family photographs that are inserted, you don't actually know that Tom is related to Ernestine Hayes. And so I was confused about why his sections were there and why I was supposed to be paying attention to them or care about who Tom was. And even after it's revealed that he's a family member, I'm still not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with those sections. Are they supposed to mirror Ernestine Hayes' own story? Are they just kind of there to show the family connection? Is it some other reason that I'm not smart enough to figure out? I don't know, but you know, I was not exactly sure why all that stuff was there. And then there were also some lengthy asides that were just sort of about the history of a place, or about the native connection to a place, or nature or animals or things like that. And so even though there was some stuff about Ernestine Hayes' life, there was a lot that never got explained, and she just kind of jumps around, and it doesn't really have the reflective nature that I expect from memoirs. So it kind of was all over the place for me, so I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. I think you might like this more than I did if you would appreciate a memoir that's written in a more experimental style. But for me, again, when it says right in the title, Blonde Indian, an Alaska Native memoir, and it does not give me the conventions of a memoir, then I'm like, okay, but what am I supposed to do with this, you know? So 2.5 stars, was kind of disappointed, but again, you might like it more than I did if you don't mind that a memoir is not memoir-y. So that's everything that I finished this past week. So in terms of currently reading, I am of course still reading The Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk, and I am happy to report that I have just crossed the halfway mark of this book. So I am now over halfway done. So that's very exciting. I'm into book 4 at this point. Man, a lot of stuff happened in book 3. So basically there was this whole schism in the Jewish community between the Jews who actually care about Judaism and the Frankist sect, and they keep sort of trying to clap back at each other, and they keep trying to get the Christians involved to sort of help them clap back at each other. And when I say the Christians, I mean like the bishops and the archbishops and like those kind of like higher up clergy people. And unfortunately, the bishops and archbishops are more siding with the Frankist sect because the Frankists don't really care about Judaism and are kind of happy to just go whatever way the wind blows in terms of their alleged religious beliefs. So now they're sort of pretending to be Christian and pretending like they're all going to get baptized and stuff so that they can have the institutional power of the Catholic Church behind their wants and desires. And so anyway, so basically what ended up happening was they basically made it so that the actual Jewish community, people took books from the Jewish community, especially copies of the Talmud, and burned them. And now the Frankists have written this whole series of, like statements of their belief or whatever, like theses, let's just call them. And one of them, they accuse the Jews of, using Christian blood, which is an old anti-Semitic trope, and I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe y'all did that. So basically the Frankists are now perpetuating anti-Semitic beliefs and stereotypes in order to further their own agenda. So yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. So yeah, that happened. And so anyway, so this continues to be an engaging read, even if it is, again, very sprawling and we're following a bunch of different characters, and the pieces haven't 100% come together, but again, they definitely have come together enough that I, sort of understand what's going on and what's happening here. So yeah, this continues to be a good book and I'm enjoying it, so yay. I'm also still reading The Idiot by Dostoyevsky. I just finished part 1 of this yesterday, so I'm about, 180 or so pages into this. This is good. So basically there's this very beautiful woman named Nastasia Filipovna who everyone is in love with, and it's sort of like, okay, well, who is she going to marry? And this woman is reckless. Oh my god, she's so reckless. So there was just a very dramatic scene where it looked like for a minute that she might marry Prince Mishkin, who asked her to marry him, but then she decides to go off with Rogozhin instead. So we're going to see how that turns out. So this is also going well. And then the last book I'm currently reading is the one I'm making the least progress in, which is Fred Brooks' The Mythical Man-Month. And I think I'm just not making as much progress in this because honestly it's just not as, like the essays are fine and they're not difficult to read, but this is just not as engaging to me as either, as any of my other reading, quite frankly. So even though The Idiot and The Books of Jacob I had planned to basically take the whole rest of the year to finish up, I think this might actually be the book that takes me the rest of the year to complete. So I think I gotta come up with some kind of plan, like, you know, every day I read 21 pages of both The Idiot and the Books of Jacob. I think I need to add 20 pages of this and just make it like a daily requirement until I finish this book. So, need to finish this. So, that is also a thing. So that is everything that I either finished this week or I'm currently reading. So if you have thoughts about any of these books, I would love to hear it. Please let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you've been reading and enjoying lately in December. I hope everyone is staying healthy and well. I hope you're doing good reading whatever you're reading. Thank you for watching this, and until next time, would it kill you to call you mother?